Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel. This is Business Connections Live with Steve Hyland.
Hello there, welcome along. It is Business Connections Live. Great to have your company as always on this Monday. We are live and we've got another great show for you today. Fantastic guests are all lined up on the program today. We're going to be looking a little bit at leadership and also how to motivate your teams as well. I think that's important, particularly in the circumstances and the situations that we still find ourselves in. My guest on today's show is Mark Terrell. Mark, great to have you with us today.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Steve. Thank you.
It should be really good. You're down there in sunny Bristol, aren't you, today?
Yes, it is quite sunny, actually, looking out the window. Yes, it's very nice.
So you describe yourself as a first-class coaching solutions. That's the name of the business, leadership coaching and also mentoring as well. So, that's quite a gambit of things that you're doing at the moment. For those people that don't know what you're about and what you do, just give us a bit of a brief background of what you're up to.
We talked about this before we came on air. And when I first sold my retail business, I started out as a consultant and then transitioned to a coach and then became a family business coach because I was in a family business for 30 years. And then about 18 months ago, I came just out of a conversation with somebody. This reluctant leader concept came out of a conversation. It suddenly struck a chord with me, and ever since it seems to strike a chord with most people I come across, in that they relate to it themselves or they know someone like it. So when we talk about reluctant leaders, there's two things that could be going on. Firstly, they're in a position of leadership and they don't really want to be in that position. So in other words, they don't really want to be influencing people. It's not the thing that motivates them. Or they just don't have the skills, and they're feeling that they're winging it. And that's the thing. We don't need to wing it these days. There are some great programs out there that will allow you to be a great leader. And if you just follow the process, which is basically what I teach, the mindset, process and skills of leadership, once you know what they are, then you can start actually put them into practice and become a leader that actually leaves a legacy.
When you look at what you used to do when you were running your own business, are there things that you feel that potentially you were doing wrong at the time and now on reflection you would have done differently if you were running that business yourself? And then when you go into businesses, do you see the same mistakes being made by the people that you're consulting for?
Yeah, absolutely. The mistake I made was I just took the next job that was offered to me. So when my father stepped away to run a video rental business that he'd sort of started off and was going great guns at the time. Obviously, it's not
until
anymore.
DVD came
along. So gradually, I took on more and more responsibility, which was in the short term, it was fine. I could just get on with it. It was part of my role, and I sort of embraced it. But as time went on, what happened was that I was starting to do more and more of what didn't motivate me. And that's what I realize now, is that I was doing too much of that and not enough of what does motivate me. And that's why motivation is such a core to what I do. Understanding what motivates someone, first of all, and understanding yourself, what motivates you. And then you can then help others by understanding what motivates them. It's almost like it's a key that unlocks so much. Going back to your question, what I see most people doing is that they just take in the next job that's offered to them. When it comes to leadership, the role that people that are offered is that management opportunity to lead the team. And in so many instances, they're not given any sort of warning, any training, any sort of gradual process. All of a sudden, they're expected to.
It's just the Peter principle, where they're promoted to their level of incompetence.
Well, yeah, I didn't know anything about that until recently, and I said, "What is that?" And I thought, yes, that is exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
So, what if there was one big win that you could suggest to people right now? Because there are going to be people watching today. We're waiting for the announcement at the end of the week where something's going to happen around how we're going to come out of lockdown. So businesses are going to slowly and gradually start getting back to work again. What would be your advice to them? What would be the win that you would say if you're going back in the business, if you're going back and your team's going to be there? What would be the one thing that that leaders within business should be considering right now that will make a change to their businesses?
Well, I just think they just need to be clear about what they expect and also be very honest about that they don't really know how things are going to work out. Honesty is so important, that almost being a bit vulnerable is something that I missed. And because I think if you're in the mindset that you have to have all the answers, then straight away you're gonna fail in some way. But if you put your hands up and say, look, I'm doing my best here. This is how I see it's working out. This is what we're going to do first step, and we'll see how it works out. And we'll take the next step as and when we know whether that's the right thing or whether it's successful. So I think it's being honest and understanding that we need to start somewhere and not take giant leaps. I think if we try and take too giant a leap, then that's going to cause too much stress. And, ultimately it's going to fail, isn't it?
What kind of tools do you think are out there to help people actually to achieve this, to get things right?
Well, motivational maps is definitely one that I use. And once you understand what motivates people, it gives you an advantage in that you know what they're looking for. There'll be some people that maybe are more motivated by security and stability. So those people, if you've got them in your team, you need to make sure that you give them plenty of information so that they can evaluate, feel that you've done your job and you're actually communicating what they need to know. So once you know what they want, you can give them what you want. And then you'll find some people will embrace the change. Some people will see this as a great opportunity to bring in the change that they've always wanted to bring in. So in that case, you might need to sort of put the reins on a bit and just say, hey, hang on a minute, this is probably not, it might be right for you, but it might not be right for everybody in the team. So it's really getting the right balance for those people that want to embrace the change and those people that just take a bit more time. You need to be, you need to adapt yourself to the different needs of everyone in your team.
Got a question for you here. This is from Linda. It says, do you think that a lot of people working from home are now realizing what parts of the job they really enjoy doing as opposed to the day-to-day drudgery of working what they have been expected to do in the past? I mean, do you think people are just changing the way they approach work? So it's now going to be in a very, very different, pragmatic way, do you think?
I think so, and definitely in my own experience, I'm really motivated in this new era, I suppose you could call it, in that my motivations are being met, and I'm aware of that. In that I want to make a difference, which I feel that I'm making a difference. Creativity is something important to me, and innovation. So bringing new ideas and problem solving is something that really motivates me, and I'm doing plenty of that. And also freedom, autonomy is important to me. So also doing the things I want to do in the way I want to do them. So, those things are really being met at the moment. So, yes, we're bound to, going back to the question was, I sort of forgotten what the question was, but it's about adapting and understanding what each one of us needs.
We've talked around it a little bit. What about strategies? Can you give us one strategy, do you think, that will make a difference to somebody's business, to the way that they operate? Is there one strategy that you would recommend, the one that you find yourself repeating on a regular basis when you go into business? You go, actually, if you do nothing else, do this, and it will change the way that you perform, the way your team perform with you, and the way the business performs. Is there one strategy that's a real winner?
The one that I always come back to, and it's the one that I say that this is what the Spice Girls can teach us about leadership. Tell them what you want, what you really, really, really want. Now, when I say that, the reason why it's so important is that most people are far too vague, and that we need to be explicit in exactly what we're expecting. And I always put it in the scenario of the domestic scenario of asking your kids to tidy their bedroom. If you ask them, just go and tidy your bedroom, they'll tidy their bedroom the way they see tidy is. On the other hand, if you say to them, can you go to your bedroom, make your bed, put all your clothes either in the wash or in the wardrobe, and say vacuum the carpet, that's an explicit expectation. So if there's one thing I would say to anyone who's leading a team is to be far more explicit in what you expect. And if you're not getting back from your team what you expect, that's probably because you're not being explicit enough.
Do you think people, that's a very interesting thing, isn't it? So there's a lot of people who think that their team know what they're thinking, don't they?
Yes.
And you've really got to be. Another one's come in here. It says, do you think that businesses have to look at the longer term rather than just the slow release of the lockdown over the next couple of months, given that there may be a second wave and another lockdown? These are very heavy questions at the very beginning. Second wave. I mean, is it, do you think people will ever react long term the way they used to react? We used to have management by fear, didn't we? Leadership by fear. And what we're looking at here, we're not really looking at the very fundamentals of what leadership is all about.
Well, it goes back to what I said. There'll be some people that will embrace it and want to bring new things in, and other people will actually be almost hankering for what was there before. So the job really is to find out where in the middle the ball is going to sort of land, because it's not going to be one or the other. It's not probably going to be all that's gone on, all the change that's happened. Some things will be reintroduced, but we're not going to go back to that original scenario, because it'll be a shame if we do, really, in a way, because I'm sure there's things that we've embraced, especially the Zoom revolution.
Do you think that'll last? Do you think that'll last, the Zoom revolution? Do you think that we'll all get used to electronic meetings like this, and people it'll just be accepted within business?
I think that there's been a barrier for a long time, people saying that I don't have to do it. Now that they have to do it, they've done it. And so there is no excuse. They cannot say, no, I can't do it, because they've had to do it. And so the barrier is now being broken down. So I've got a good friend who is high up in the police force, and he said, there's no way we're going to ditch this. I'm doing all my meetings. I'm far more productive. And this has shown us a different way of working. And we'll be foolish just to disregard it and just go back to how it was.
I think the problem's always been an element of trust, isn't it? When people are working remotely or working from home, there is this feeling that the business doesn't trust that they're actually going to get on with it. Let's move on a little bit, because, part of the thing is it's a different approach to the way motivation takes place in the workplace. And that's really what is core, the essence of what you do. How do you think that motivational way that you approach it differs from what businesses normally do? Is it a case that business owners they think they're motivating, but in fact they're not motivating at all, and they don't realize that there is a process in motivation?
Well, the first thing that happens when you're in leadership is that you assume that people that you're leading are motivated the way you are. And that's your biggest mistake, in that if, like, say, I'm motivated by freedom, that does not to say that the people I'm leading actually want freedom. And there's one issue that happens, is that they don't. Someone that's motivated by freedom is not going to be necessarily managing people. They're not managing, and there is a place for management. I think you have to be, going back to my explicitness sort of scenario, there are times when you have to manage people, and you can't just give them free rein. They've got to understand what their role is, so that they can actually deliver what that is. So I think that's the important thing. I've forgotten the question again, but hopefully that makes sense.
No, it was the difference in the styles of motivation. Some businesses don't. Long question. So it's not your fault. It's mine. But some people, they don't understand truly what motivation is all about. And the essence of your business is the fact that you approach motivation in a different, structured way. And it's really just trying to understand how that differs from how other people will do it.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So motivation gets a bit of a bad press in some ways, because if you think about it, we've got motivational speakers out there who obviously just by them being there, it almost seems that there is you get motivation from something outside of you. But actually, if you think about it, our motives to take action are all from within us. So I would suggest that those people that say they're motivational speakers are more inspirational, because they talk about a story, maybe from adversity through to recovering from that adversity. And that's all very, that's great stuff to hear. It's inspirational. But when we start thinking about what motivation really is, motivation is our motive to take action. And ultimately, it's what gets us out of bed in the morning. It's the thing that we really want to get when we go to work. And if we're not getting those things, ultimately, over a long period of time, then we become demotivated. And we lack the energy we need. If we're not getting the things that motivate us, ultimately, that leads to low energy levels. Low energy levels mean that we're not going to be performing at our best. So really, the most important thing is that remembering that motivation is energy, and the more we can get of it, the more we can get of it, the more we're going to be productive and efficient, and get more from what we do. And obviously, that leads on to the bottom line for businesses. If we're motivated and we're motivating our teams, ultimately, the bottom line will improve.
Well, we're going to be talking about making better business decisions and also how to reward people the way they want to be rewarded. That's a few more of the topics that are going to be coming along in just a few moments' time. Very interesting what you were saying there as well about the difference between leadership and inspirational, or motivational and inspirational speaking, because there are a lot of people who think that everybody's got a story. Everybody's had a death-defying illness, or something's happened in their life, and they reflect on that. And I always feel that when I hear those kind of speakers, while it is, yes, inspirational, the fact that they've been able to work their way through it and come out the other side and learn lessons. The thing is that the circumstances are personal to them. And so therefore it may not work across the board, but yet they're trying to sell it as a one size fits all.
Yeah, yes. And also what we've got to remember is that when we're in the room with them, yes, we feel the energy, we feel that motivation as we perceive it. But actually what happens, say 12, 24 hours later, that's gone. That isn't with us anymore. So it's more important to understand what really motivates us. And whatever that person was talking about, link it back to something that's really sort of important to you. And we're talking about values here, aren't we? We're talking about the things that are important to you. And that story, that person probably ticked a box somewhere along the line that you actually is in line with your values. And that's the sort of thing you need to bring into your life and how you lead your life and the things you do. That's the important message, and linking it back to the things that you need to do in your day-to-day role.
Really interesting. I heard a statistic actually when it comes to speakers. I think there's something like 42,000 new speakers, many of them probably leadership, inspirational or motivational speakers, join the circuit every year in London.
Wow.
And you think, that's pretty frightening, isn't it? So there's a lot of noise out there that you've got to sort of get yourself through, haven't you? My guest on today's show is Mark Terrell, and we're talking about motivation within your business and how to motivate your staff to get better bottom line profits and to make your business successful. And let's face it, right now, it's the very things that we're going to be actually needing as we come out of lockdown over the next couple of months or so. You're watching Business Connections Live. Great to have your company as always. It is a Monday. My name's Steve Hyland. It's good to have you with us. Don't forget, if you've got any questions, we are on LinkedIn at the moment. We're on Facebook at the moment. We're also on YouTube as well. So if you want to leave any questions or anything like that you have for Mark, please don't hesitate. Go there. Just leave us a question. We'll see if we can answer it for you during the course of the program. All right, let's go back a week now. We had a great show last week with Ian Dixon, and he always comes up with some cracking ideas. He is a business coach as such. He's been on the circuit a long, long time, but some really good advice to be prepared as we come out of lockdown over the next couple of months. So going back a week on last week's edition of Business Connections Live, here's Ian Dixon.
My name is Ian Dixon. I'm an international business speaker and business performance coach. And for the last 15 years, I've been helping people just like you to become healthier, wealthier and happier. And if you haven't picked up already, I'm always upbeat and positive. And today we've talked about things you can do from the bunker. And I'll just give you a few literally off the list that hopefully will help you. So Find 10 people while we're in lockdown that you know that are going to need the other side of the lockdown. Tell 5 of those people how important they are to you and do whatever you can to support them. The other 5, don't tell them, just do nice things for them so that you can tap into them the other side. Stop selling your stuff and start finding ways in which you can help other people. So whether that be FAQs, how-tos, 10 ways in which, create branded PDFs and just give it away. Don't even ask for an email address. Market to help, not market to sell. I promise you the sales will come. Be consistent with what you do and deliver quality, not quantity. One of the things that I've been seeing is everyone's been trying to race to the front because everyone's trying to race to the front. This isn't toilet roll buying. Actually, just stay true to what you were doing before. Whatever you put out reflects its potential return, so stay consistent with the quantity that you're putting out. Share online. Find ways to share whatever it is, whether it be a product or service. Find ways to share it online. Find ways to share information that helps people now, right now, not in 3 months, 6 months or 9 months, because we don't know where we're going to be in 6-9 months time. What else can I share with you? So networking, online networking, we haven't even talked about that. It's critical that you jump on to one of these online networking platforms. Networking is one of the most important things that you can do anyway, and there is no reason, just because you can't go and share a sausage over breakfast, that you can't go networking. So for networking, I'm going to give them a big plug. They've been very quick to market with an amazing 80 meetings a week. There is no excuse for a fiver that you couldn't go network. There's a big plug for them, but it's important that you continue to network. Oh, but Steve, I don't know how many more you want me to do. I could just keep going. There's lots.
Give me 2 more.
2 more, right. So make sure that, be careful of your filters. So there's fake news is so good. Even good news sources are putting out fake news because they didn't spot it as fake news. There was a lot of fake news around the whole coronavirus when it first started that our nationals were putting out, and actually it was complete poppycock. So and then what else can I give you? Right, so make sure that you are looking far enough down the road so that when you start and it becomes apparent that it is coming back, that you are in the water ready to go. Don't leave it too late, because as quick as it went, it will come back as quick, and you need to be there and ready, because I genuinely think this is going to be an amazing opportunity the other side of the pandemic. I truly believe, I'm not just picking it up, I truly believe it's going to be a great opportunity.
Ian Dixon on last week's edition of Business Connections Live, an absolutely fantastic program, and my thanks to him for all the advice and information that he gave us during the course of that program. By the way, if you're thinking that this is a really good idea and you'd like to be involved with this, maybe you'd like to come on the program. Of course, if lockdown is just around the corner, that means the studio is going to be open as well, and then come to our main studio, which is just to the west of London. So it's a multi-camera, green screen studio. We do all sorts of different things there, everything from presenter and speaker show reels all the way through to corporate video production. In fact, if you've ever been on a speed awareness course and you've sat there and you've been watching a video with Tiff Nadell in it, then we had a lot to do with that particular video as well. So if that is something you'd like to find out more about, then get in touch with us here at Business Connections Live. It's dead easy to do. You can drop us an email to studio@businessconnectionslive.com. If you want, you can even still pick up the phone. We were talking about this before the program. People not using the phone enough at the moment, but 01784 256 777. There's been a resurgence in the phone. People are saying, yes, the Zooms are nice, text messages are nice, but the phones are even better. You don't have to get dressed when you're on the phone. You can also follow our stream of consciousness at BCL Business TV. You can watch us on Facebook. You can watch us on LinkedIn. And of course, you can go to our website where you will find all the details about all our programs. So like 400 hours worth of programs there at businessconnectionslive.com. My guest on today's show, absolutely cracking show. We're talking about motivational within your teams and how it's going to help you increase profits within your business and how to maybe prepare yourself for coming out of lockdown with COVID-19 as well. My guest is Mark Terrell. Mark, lovely, as I said, to have you on the show today. It's been an interesting time. We were talking earlier on about the whole Zoom thing. Have you found Zoom to be useful within your business, do you think?
Well, I was using it anyway beforehand. I was using it a lot. And the biggest challenge I had was most people to transition to using Zoom because it's obviously far more efficient time-wise. And as I said earlier, it's about now those barriers are now gone. So I think for us that want to move our businesses online, then hopefully it should be easier that people are more aware and also are used to using this technology.
All right, let's get back to the matter in hand, making better business decisions we were going to be talking about. Mm-hmm. How do you think that relates back to where we started, where we talked about motivation of the teams, motivation of our staff within our organizations? When it comes to making better business decisions, what do you mean by that?
Well, on a personal level, firstly, you need to understand what's right for you so that you can make sure you take the right role for you. On a personal level, I talked about the mistake I made was just taking the next role. And that was the next step, the Peter Principle, where I started to fail or I didn't feel that I fitted into that role. So motivation and understanding what motivates you will allow you to make better personal decisions on what role's best for you. Now, just for instance, one of my recent clients, he's a director in a business. He's basically found himself the ideal role that allows him to be creative. It doesn't mean that he has to spend a lot of time managing people. He has got a small team, but it's not the major part of his role. So it's understanding, getting the mixture right for your role to make sure that you're doing, as I mentioned earlier, enough of what motivates you to give you the energy. But it doesn't mean you don't do anything that doesn't motivate you. It's actually getting the balance right. So finding that. So that's on an individual basis. If we talk about career or your business, that's how you can use motivations to make sure that you create the business that's right for you or create the role that's right for you. And then from there on, then if you've got an understanding of what motivates your team, you can then make sure that they're in the right role and that you're doing as much as you can to motivate them. And it's not about taking responsibility for their motivation. It's about understanding what it is on an individual basis, what they need to perform at the best, and that obviously is fulfilling their motivations. And you, as their manager or their leader, whichever you want to call it, you have a role to play. And understanding what that role is, then that once you've got that information, it's your decision whether you use it or not. And most people decide that actually it's a good idea to use this information because it will help me to get more from my team. I talk a lot.
Do you think we communicate enough with our teams? I mean, one of the things you say is about rewarding your teams the way they want to be rewarded, and
yeah.
I got the feeling you were going in that particular direction. But yeah. If that is the case, do you think a lot of business managers don't talk to their teams enough? It was interesting. I was watching Van der Valk last night, and there was a classic example there of the lead character, one of his constables who's new and young and very, very bright, seems to be... he's just not listening to him. He's not motivating him. He's not listening to what he wants. He's not rewarding him in what he says. And it kind of leads back to this old thing about where do you find psychopaths? Do you find them either in jail or running a business?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, communication is a really interesting one, isn't it? Do we do enough of it? Probably not. But it's not just about the quantity. It's about the quality of that communication. One of the key skills that any leader would quickly make a difference by understanding is how to give good quality feedback, because that's how we grow. Firstly, that's how we understand how we can be better. And even if it's just being told what we've got right, that is a good form of feedback. And I talk a lot about catching people doing things right. Obviously, Ken Blanchard's 1 Minute Manager stuff is really important. to get that message across that you're doing things right. And the reason why, I think we're going to talk about the motivations and what they are. One of the things that we see time and time again is that the search your motivator, which is one of the motivations within motivational maps, is about making a difference. And if you're motivated in that way, what you want from somebody that's managing you is good quality feedback, so that you feel you're making a difference. So if you're not getting it, then it's not being fulfilled because you're just not getting that communication from your superior. Then ultimately you're not going to feel that you're making a difference. And that's the thing. Search your motivation, that making a difference, doing something that you feel is worthwhile and meaningful, really needs to be fed by various forms of feedback from people that are managing you. Also, you can get feedback from clients and customers. That's the other thing that you can look for it. So that's that. As far as communication goes, it's about quantity, but also quality, to understand what that message should be and what people are actually looking for from you.
When you talk about motivations, it's a bit of a nebula word, isn't it? We kind of understand what we're talking about when we talk about motivation. If you had to identify what typical motivation is in the way somebody reacts with somebody else, how would you describe it? Is it a case of saying, well done, you've done a fantastic job? Is that going to be motivation, or is there more to it than that?
There's definitely more to it. The motivation is the way that we filter things. The things that, if we look at a scenario, we will filter it in the order that is important to us, and that probably doesn't make any sense whatsoever at the moment. But if you think about the things that motivate you will be, those are the first things that you think about. Is that going to be met by doing that thing? So the simplest way to sort of explain what I'm talking about is, if there's a scenario where you're given a business opportunity, personally, I will look at the opportunities. Will it make a difference? Will it allow me to be creative? And will it give me freedom? So those are the sort of top criteria. Whereas I know that my brother, for instance, looks at it completely different. His lead motivator is the money drive. So the first thing he'll look at is, will it make money? And the trouble with this is that if you're working with someone that's like that, and you're looking at things so differently, is that you tend to think that there's a personality clash. But what we know by using motivational maps is that most of the conflicts we come across are because people's motivations are clashing. And I mentioned earlier about the connection to the values that we all have, which motivations have a big part to play in.
You keep alluding to the maps, don't you? So let's talk a little bit about the maps then, because last night before I went to bed, you sent me over the form, and I actually filled in the form for the map that we do. So you've got a personal profile of me. You probably know more about me than is probably right. It was a very interesting thing. Just describe what this process is, and is it worth bringing up the results that we got, the slides that we got, because there's the performance at work one. Is that worth bringing up initially?
Yeah, you can. Where it fits in with motivation. So this is where motivation fits in. We've got three things here. Firstly, the direction. The direction is where we decide what we're going to do, or our role or our business. And obviously that's the first thing, tend to be what we start with. The next thing we look at is the skills and how we like to do things. And the third element, the motivation, tends to be the thing that most people disregard. It's the thing that, but ultimately, it's the thing that will keep us going through adversity. And that's the thing that probably we need to think about first. And now I'm sure most people listen to this are aware of Simon Sinek's Start with the Why. And if you flick to the next slide, I don't know if you can do that, but actually I've added on.
There we go.
You'll see I've added. So if you think about direction, skills and motivation, actually what we're talking about here is the what we do, how we do it, and motivation being the why. And that's the key thing that we got to remember, why are we doing this? And if we can really make sure that we keep that front of mind, then that will ultimately give us the energy we want and keep us moving forward, even when we've got times of adversity that we're going through at the moment.
Because that's interesting, because the next slide does actually say that, doesn't it?
Well,
motivation, the motive to take action. And I think that's one problem that a lot of people have, is that they know they should be doing something, but they don't do it.
Yeah. And ultimately that's what, the stronger the motive, the more likely we are to do something. So, what I come across a lot with people that I'm coaching is that it's not necessarily the things that motivate them is the problem. Quite often it's the things that don't motivate them that they're not paying enough attention to. And quite surprisingly, that quite often is money. They're not paying enough attention to the money because they didn't go into business actually to make money. They did more to make a difference or what those things. And the other thing I see quite often is the motivation to promote ourselves, which is obviously important in that we need to market ourselves in some way. And so if you're not motivated to do it, you tend not to do it. And then ultimately that leads to your message not landing, people not finding out what you do, and you're the biggest secret, and no one ever finds you. So it's not necessarily the things that motivate you are your problem. It's actually the things that don't motivate you that you need probably to address. Well,
you've got this here as well, haven't you? The 9 work motivators. So just talk us through this a little bit and explain a little bit more about this. And why are they colored? Is it different groups for the different colors?
Yes.
And what do they mean?
Okay, so there's 3 groups of 3. There's relationship motivators in the green, the achievement motivators in the red, and then we've got growth motivators in the blue. So these are obviously, there's 9 motivations here, and it's not that we're saying that we're one or the other. We're actually a combination of all 9, all of us. We've got these within us. What we need to know is which ones are really driving us at this present time. And that's another thing to remember, in that motivation will change. And I know you've got another video coming up from someone that's going to talk about color profiling, which is about the how and how we do things. So it's understanding the difference, firstly, but making sure that knowing that motivation is likely to change, but our behavioral style doesn't tend to change, or it doesn't change very quickly, and it only tends to change if we want to change it, where the motivation will change with our circumstances and the things that we're looking for. So, I've mentioned about my brother, you'll see the builder motivator in the middle, that's the drive for money, but you'll see that, all these things are important, but which ones are most important to us? And which ones are we actually, looking to fulfill first?
Do you think we're all a combination of those? I mean, we looked at them there. There's 9 individual sections. Do you think then that we can be a bit of the green, a bit of a bit of the red, a bit of the blue, and that kind of gives that character profile of the individual? Do you think that's the way that works?
Definitely. The thing is with motivation is that there's 3 things going on. There is our past that's happened to us, which is part of what motivates us because it's part of our being. There's the things that are happening to us, and that's really about the achievement motivations. And then the things that we are striving for, so our future self, are those growth motivations that we're moving towards. So there's a bit of an element of here of past, future. So those things are going on all the time with us. And what we see is that when someone is very growth motivated, they're very much looking to be something in the future. They're moving towards something. When achievement motivations are strongest, that tends to be that they are very much in the here and now and what they're achieving. And when relationship motivations are strong, that tends to be that they're very much living on their what's happened to them. And there's no right or wrong with this, but sometimes you can see that the relationship motivation can hold people back if they allow them to. And it's allowing it so that you are sort of progressing into where you want to be. Because if you've got a strong friend motivator, for instance, that's the motivation to belong. You might not take any action or change anything unless all of a sudden everyone around you has sort of flown the nest and gone somewhere. So what you need to do is remember that could possibly be holding you back from making the decisions that are right for you. So, again, like I said, there's no right or wrong. There's no judgment in this. It's just about what actually motivates you and making sure that those things that you need now are being met, but also remembering that the motivations are likely to change in the future and making decisions that are in line with that.
We'll look at mine in just a few moments' time and find out what that all means. That's going to be somewhat revealing, I would imagine, but that's coming up in just a few seconds' time. My guest on today's show is Mark Terrell. We're really enjoying today's program. Thank you very much, Mark. More from him in just a few moments' time. You're watching Business Connections Live. Thank you very much for joining us. As Mark just alluded, we're going to be hearing from Nick Fewing now. Nick was on the program, God, it feels like years ago. I think he was on program 199. It was a cracking show from Nick, and of course a different way to find out the different characters of people, how to motivate them, where they fit in within an organization as well. Really good show from Nick with the key takeaways from that edition of Business Connections Live. Here's Nick Fewing.
Okay, my name's Nick Fewings. I'm CEO of Engagement Works, and the takeaways from today's session are you need to, if you are going to build a high-performing team, there's two things that you need to focus on. The first thing is the who. Who have you got in your team? Not only in terms of their technical skills, but you also need to know who you've got in your team from a behavioural perspective. And the second thing, which a lot of teams don't know or understand, is how do those individuals work effectively together as a team? And it's really important that you find a measurement tool, because if you can't measure something, you can't manage it and make it better and more effective. So those are the two takeaways from today's session. Who is in your team and how do they work effectively together?
Interesting program there. And if you want to find out more, you can go to our website at Business Connections Live, and you can see there businessconnectionslive.com, and you'll get the entire program. Just put in the search bar Nick Fewing, and he will pop up in a matter of moments, and you'll be able to watch the entire show. Really good show. Don't forget, if you want to get in touch with us here, you can go to the website as always, or if you want, you can always drop us an email to businessconnectionslive.com, or if you wish, you can always pick the phone up and call us on 01784 256 777. It's great to have your company. We are live on a Monday, and we're in a funny place at the moment, aren't we? Life is changing on a daily basis. We've all learned new technology, but one day normality of some sort or another is going to return. And how are we going to motivate our teams? How are we going to motivate our staff? My guest on today's show is Mark Terrell, and he's down in Bristol today. Sunny Bristol. It's getting a little bit overcast where we are up here in London at the moment. Let's go back to the chart, because we're going to reveal a little bit about my chart that I filled in last night in the early hours. I'd be very interested for you to explain a little bit more behind what we're actually looking at here.
Okay, so this is your motivational profile, and we'll see that it goes from left to right, and you'll see that the strongest motivator for you, Steve, is the expert motivator. So what that says is that one of the things that drives you is being a specialist and also sharing knowledge. So is that something? Is that correct? Firstly, I suppose
that kind of feels right, doesn't it?
Yes. It seems to seem to fit for me. Secondly, you want to be innovative and you want to bring new things into the world. I guess that's in line with what you do as well.
Yes, indeed. Yep.
And then thirdly, your searcher motivator indicates that you want to do something that's meaningful and makes a difference. And I guess that's being fairly well met as well at the moment.
It's interesting because obviously we've got a red and two blue bars. I mean, is there a right or wrong on this when you're looking at a chart like that? Is it just is showing the profile? Because it was very interesting when I was actually doing the online test. What it says is to answer quickly. Don't even think about what your answers are. Answer quickly. Go through it as quick as you possibly can. First thought that comes into the head, that's the way you should answer it. And the questions on there, can you give an example of the kind of questions? So you're able to do that easily?
I can't offhand, but what happens during that process, which takes about 10 to 12 minutes on average, what we're doing is we're comparing each of the motivations against the others. So that's why the top ones come to the top is that they have won the war against the others. So that's why we know that they're accurate, as long as you've actually entered it in the right spirit. Obviously, if you didn't do it in the right spirit, then you could get completely the wrong results. But why would you want to do that? I don't know. But if you do it in the right spirit, this is going to be in the right order for you, because ultimately this is a self-perception inventory. But basically, it's just giving you something that reflects on the way you look at things. And it was interesting. I just picked up what Nick said. All these things are really useful in that they give you a measurement and a frame of reference. And Nick talks about that 4-color model, which is I use as well, because the behavioral style is really important. But you can't really start to change anything unless you know where you are at the moment. So if you want to change something, you need somewhere to start.
Well, I was going to say, when you've got that kind of tool, when you're looking at something like this, and you're saying to yourself, well, how do I use it now? So you could send all your team to go away, and I want you to do a Motivator score. I want you to do the test online, and then we're going to come back. So what's the next step with this? How do you actually use that information to improve, to motivate, to change? How's it done?
Okay, so first of all, we get the output for each person in the team, like you've seen for yourself. So we can then look at how that works for the dynamics within the team, and what that first of all tells us about. It tells us what their strengths are, but it also probably highlights where they're probably weak. Now, one of the things I come across quite often is that you get a lot of people that like creatives that are attracted to one another, and they start a business around, maybe a graphic design business, something like that, which they're great at what they do, but ultimately their business is not really going to be successful because there's nobody doing the other bits that are important, like collecting the money, like doing the admin, those sort of things that get just put to one side because there's nobody in the team that really wants to do them. There's nobody that wants or motivated to do them, and that's the biggest learning for a lot of people. And also, what you find is that it highlights where people have had problems where they've maybe clashed a bit. We call it conflicts, and they suddenly realise that's why, because you are acting because that's what motivates you, but actually that's the thing that least motivates me. So that's why we always sort of clash on those sort of things. So just by sharing this information, you can help people to actually get on better. And it's not about changing people. It's not about thinking, right, we've got to change your profile. It's actually embracing what it's telling us and making the most out of what it's telling us.
I've got another slide, and I don't know what it relates to. It was the next slide on in the deck that you sent over to me. It was this one. What's this one trying to demonstrate?
Okay, so how this is different to yours. What I've given you here is that there's the profiles that's similar to yours on the left, which is the bars, and on the right is some extra information I get in that it's not only what motivates us, it's also about how we feel those motivations are being fulfilled, and that again is a real important insight. Especially in a business, if you're doing an exercise in motivational maps and then you find that one of the motivations is always being poorly fulfilled, that's a key indication for the business that something probably needs to change. And then on an individual basis, maybe a coaching one-to-one, I can ask the right questions for this person. So in this instance, this person is motivated mainly by the builder motivator. So that's money, material satisfaction, but you'll notice that what we call the PMA score is low. So the question would be, so why is it low, and what would be an 8, 9 or a 10 score? What would that mean, or what would that look like to you? And so you get a picture of actually what it is that each individual is looking for, the ultimate goal, and then you can then connect that to their personal goals. And this is why motivational maps are really, really useful when it comes to the appraisal system.
Yeah.
So, we know what the reputation for appraisals is not very good. I don't think I've come across anybody that actually looks forward to an appraisal scenario.
Well, it's a telling off, isn't it? I think that's the way people approach them.
Well, that's the trouble. But if you imagine changing it completely, forget what you used to do, just bring in the motivation. Well, what is it that I can, we talk about leadership and motivation. If you are managing someone, if you think to yourself, right, what do I want to get out of an appraisal? Well, one thing I want to get out of it is how I can get more performance out of each individual in the team. So why not start with a motivational map? Why not think, right, what is it that you need from your work? Wouldn't that be a fresh idea? Wouldn't that be a great way to think, well, actually, that's a great place to build from. So what is it that I need from you? Okay, so you want meaning, so you need plenty of feedback, right? Okay, and you also want some freedom. So what does that actually mean? What does that mean when you say freedom?
The danger, of course, that you have, isn't it, that you've got an expert like yourself, and it's all the gear and no idea, isn't it? Which is a problem. So I remember once working for a very large multinational organisation. They used to do employee engagement, and they would congratulate the people on the fact that they had such a high return when it came to them filling in their employee engagement forms. And of course, the actual, it wasn't a case of congratulating them. The reason they were filling them in was because they were unhappy within their job circumstances, and they wanted to tell the people that they were working for.
Right.
So they had all the information, but they didn't understand the information and the content and the importance of the information that they had.
Yeah. And going back to, the measurement is important in that you can get a really good idea of how certain motivations are being met within a business and maybe others not. And so you can actually then target what you need to do to make some quick wins ultimately, so that you can really, start working as motivation as a starting point rather than something that's a second thought.
We've got another graph here that's slightly different from the previous one. Just very quickly talk us through this, because we can see here that none of them reach 30% or 30, and and it's very pretty.
If you go back to the previous, so you'll see the two graphs are interesting, in that you'll see this is very steep. So from top to bottom, it's steep from 39 down to 10 score, whereas the next one you had on the screen, it's quite shallow. So again, there's no right or wrong, but what we need to remember is that the steeper the graph, the more important it is to make sure that those top motivations are being met. Whereas when it's flatter, then that means that person, you could say, might be easier to manage because they get motivations from a wider variety of things. But it's understanding what that means. But we can still also look at how they feel each motivation is being met. That's the key to be able to help a business, and individuals by understanding what it is that they really want, and then actually having measurement to start from. Then again, you've got a good base and framework to begin.
What they really, really want.
Really, really want, yes.
How clever was that? That brought us all the way round again, didn't it? From the very beginning all the way to the very end. That was fantastic. Listen, we are rapidly approaching the end of the hour. It's been really interesting talking to you about all of this. We've identified the strengths in our team. We've talked about revolutionizing the appraisal process. I think we could have talked probably a lot more about that. I think appraisals within organizations are very badly handled in many cases because the people who are doing them just don't have the necessary skills, or in this particular case, don't have the information that they need to be able to give a proper appraisal. We kind of skipped over improving leadership. With all of this, is it for the leader to have this information, or should this be farmed out to the people who are working with him, and from the information he gets back from them, that it improves his leadership style and stance?
I emphasize that it's individuals' responsibility to make sure they get what they need to be motivated. I don't think this is an opportunity to give more responsibility for the managers and leaders, but they all have a role to play. So it's understanding what that role is, and what we can do with the individual maps is that we can put them into a team map, which then ultimately becomes almost like the instruction manual for the manager to tell them what they need to do to motivate their team. And so just that in itself is enlightenment, in that they can then know that what they're doing is the right thing. What I see when I'm working with clients is people need some sort of sign of that they're doing the right thing. So it's a bit of it's just finding that what you do is actually going to get your results, and having the confidence to stick at it. And leadership is about being consistent. And once you know that there's a right way, understanding that you have the right tools and you have the right information to act on, that takes away a lot of the ambiguity that most people have to work without. So understanding that you need certain information to do your job right. And these are the sort of things that can help you be a better leader, be a better manager, because you're starting from what your team want rather than maybe what you think they want.
What they really, really want. Okay, listen, we're nearly out of time. I always ask our guests to say who they are and where they're from, and to give us the key takeaway. So I'm really looking for a summary of the hour, if you can. I know you've got a bit of paper all ready for this. So, probably this is the most important bit, I think, is that it's encapsulating everything that we've learned in the past hour from you, and how it can work within our businesses. So please say who you are, where you're from. The airwaves are all yours.
Hello, I'm Mark Terrell. I'm a leadership mentor for business owners that have got to that point in their career or their business where they realize that getting the best in their team is what they need to focus on. I've been there. I know what it feels like, and I've winged it like most people do. But there is no need to wing it. Once you understand the mindset, the process and skills that you need to follow, that takes away a lot of the guesswork, and it will change the way that you actually see your role. So if that's of interest, then check out the reluctantleader.academy, where I put lots of stuff around all this. And ultimately, you can leave a lasting legacy if you want to. And hopefully I will be that inspiration.
It's been fantastic talking to you. I've really enjoyed talking to you today. And I think this whole area of motivation within teams is so important. And I think a lot of people think that really the way you motivate somebody is to shout just a little bit louder at them. And it's funny, I think the older you get, the more you realize that is such the wrong way of doing it. And what gives anybody the right to motivate out of fear? I remember working for a few organizations, and they would manage in the name of a particular manager. So-and-so would want this, and his name would carry a certain level of fear with it. If you didn't satisfy him, then it would be for the whipping board, maybe at a later date. And it's a shame, because there still is a lot of companies out there. And I suppose what we see is the people who are leading companies, some of them are the entrepreneurs who start the businesses, and what they don't have are the skills to grow and to be leaders. They're great at being entrepreneurial and starting a business, but they don't have the necessary skills to manage it and to make it grow with them. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I absolutely spot on, and I relate very much to the link between leadership and marketing, because marketing is about getting people to follow you with your message. And if you think about leadership in the same respect, is that people, if they like your message and then they like the way you teach them, then they will follow you. The same as if you get your marketing message right, then people will want to follow you. So I think, when we talk about getting to the bare bones of what it actually is, leadership is getting people to do what you want to do because they want to do it.
Beautifully summed up. What a beautiful way to end the program. What a beautiful day it is. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure having you with us on the show today. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've had a couple of text messages coming from people saying that we've been posting on Facebook and our questions haven't been coming up. The reason for that is there is actually Facebook have just changed something, God love them, as they were doing. They changed it over the weekend. It only came to light, and it's stopping this interaction between some of the posts coming up onto the program. But hopefully that'll all be resolved once again by next week. But I just thought I'd highlight that and say thank you very much for all the questions that did come in, and thank you very much for your time. And Mark, thank you very much. What does the future hold for you over the next couple of weeks? I mean, what is just around the corner for you? Do you see your business just going through the roof all of a sudden? Are people already on the phone saying, whenever we come out of lockdown, we're ready for you, we're waiting to motivate the team? Or are you having to proactively market and sell at the moment? As a small business, how are you surviving this?
I'm a realist, and however much I'd like it to be that the first thing, the scenario, marketing is important. I market wherever I can in different ways, like what I'm doing today, speaking, posts on social media. All those things are important. So you asked about the future. I'm developing my academy website, which I'm developing more online courses. And I was doing that before this. So I see that as the future anyway. And what I see the future being, especially to what I do, is that most people will need to take charge of their own development. And if you wait forever for the business that you're working for to give you the training that you need, then ultimately I think you're going to be disappointed. So as far as where I come from is that I'm allowing people to get the training and the coaching and mentoring that they need to develop themselves and develop their businesses and develop their careers in the way that they need to basically take charge of their own development.
Brilliant. And on that bombshell, we'll say thank you very much for your time today. Look forward to having you in the studio in the near future. Until that, where we can shake each other warmly by the throat. But until then, the best of luck. And I hope coming out of COVID-19 is a good thing for you and the business expands. And it's really interesting, this whole online teaching element. I think that's going to revolutionize the way people within business do learn the different skills. The only issue I see with it at the moment is there is so much noise out there. There's the biggest problem with all of this is there's some really good stuff, but there is a lot of rubbish.
Indeed. Yes. Thank you, Steve. I've really enjoyed it. It's been good.
Yeah. Been my pleasure. And so there we go. That's Mark Terrell. Thank you very much to him for joining us on the program. If you want to be part of the program in the future, you can get in touch with us here at Business Connections Live. Go and drop us an email if you want. You can do that right now if you wish. Or if you want to, you can pick the phone up and give us a call on 01784 256 777. Or if you wish, you can go to the website, of course, as always, at businessconnectionslive.com. But from me, Steve Harlan, listen, stay safe out there. Regardless of what's just around the corner, regardless of what we hear at the end of the week, just be safe, look after yourselves, and I look forward to seeing you next week from all the team. Bye for now. Bye-bye.
Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel.